Welcome to OG and Jesus, the podcast, where the oil field and blue collar meets faith, real life, and real conversations. Hosted by Casey Red Morris and Pastor Marcus Rosa. It's steel-toe boots, hard hats, long hours, real work, and real faith. Whether you are driving to work, sitting in traffic, or just needing real talk, this podcast is for you.
All right, well, good, I don't know, it'll be morning, evening, night, or whatever, somebody's checking it out. Hey, go ahead and introduce yourself for some of those guys who may be checking in, Will.
I'm Casey Red Morris, also the OG of Jesus.
OG, all right. And so, look, my name's Pastor Marcus, just excited about you guys being here. So you had some things on your heart, just because of some stuff that we had talked about. Go ahead and let's make it happen.
So yesterday when you were preaching your sermon and we were talking about Jonah, and I had read Jonah before we got to church and everything, and you were talking about how he always ran from God. I think a lot of times we all do that, and especially guys that work like I work, you're gone, different things. You keep going, and you dig yourself that hole that you can't get out of, and then all of a sudden you're too deep, and now you want to turn to Jesus and God to start worshiping when you should have been doing it the whole time. And
well, let me man, I had a Bible right here. Yeah, this is the real professional. Y'all just hold on real quick. Oh man, start grunting when you get older. Look, so I figured some of you guys who are like brand new to the Bible and stuff, it will take 2 seconds to read through here because there'll be an opportunity for some of these guys. You know, Jonah's a pretty cool book, man. You know,
yeah.
This is a dude who tried to go offshore. Like, literally, he tried to run as fast as he can. But I just want to read three verses for you out of Jonah chapter 1. It says, "The word of the Lord came unto Jonah, the son of Amittai. He said, Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, cry out against it, for their wickedness has come up before me. But Jonah rose up to flee unto this city called Tarshish from the presence of the Lord, and then he went down to Joppa." So that's the story of that guy. You know, he heard the Lord say, "Hey, do this,"
right?
And he ran literally, and I didn't know this until I looked it up. But where he was supposed to go was 550 miles east-northeast. He ended up going 2,500 miles west. Now, you can't run much further than that. So why was that important to you? You know, think about guys that are watching today, young ladies that are watching today, families that are watching. Why did that come to mind today?
Well, some of the, I've been talking to a lot of the younger guys lately, now that they've seen the podcast and they've, come up to me and talked to me, and they've just heard my story and different things, and they're like, "Man, I don't know how to read the Bible. I don't know how to do this." And then you turn right around and they're still doing the same things they were doing. And I try to tell them, hey, learn from my mistakes, because I did run for years. I mean, just, coming to church here really opened my eyes to a lot of things, listening to you preach. And these guys a lot of them are young and they don't have any direction. And they get caught up in different things, drinking, drugging or whatever it may be. And then it affects their job. It affects their home life. It affects, they're paying their bills. It affects their kids. And they keep going down that same path and they don't know how to get out of it until it's too late. And then once it's too late, then they want to try to turn to reading the Bible and God and everything. When if they were doing that always from the beginning, then I don't think they would end up that way.
Yeah. Well, we talked about it yesterday. It's like, man, if you if you're in a hole, stop digging.
Right.
And so like, man, if you're in this hole, stop digging. Now that some of these folks, I can already tell. I can feel it over the internet waves and stuff. Some of these guys are like, man, that's good for you, Casey, but you don't understand the hole that I'm in. You don't understand, and so it's easy for you to say, man, these guys got start doing right. What would you say to somebody who's in the middle of that hole, and they're trying to get out of it, but it just seems like it's impossible to get out of the hole they're in?
I guess the best thing to say is been there, done that.
Yeah.
Got the T-shirt, got all the prizes, everything. I mean, I've done it. I've been there, and
you probably got some like regret tattoos as well, like some regrets of just times where that kind of stuck a little bit.
There is. I mean, I do. It's crazy because I do have tattoos to remind me of the past.
Yeah.
That help me remember hey, this is where you were and this is where you are now. And where I'm at now is 1,000% better than where I was.
Yeah.
As far as spiritually, in my relationships with my wife and my kids, it's great, but and I reach out to you a lot. That's why I text you a lot of times, and say, hey, where do I need to go now? Point me in the right way. Because if I just open the Bible and start reading, I don't think sometimes that I comprehend a lot of the stuff. So if I have somebody or I have something that tells me, hey, read it this way, or go this way, or go to this book and read this book, and think about this, like you did with Jonah when you told me, it's more than about a whale. Mm-hmm. Look at other things. Look what Jesus did and everything. So I need that direction, and I feel a lot of guys are the same way. They got to have that direction. Even though we do our job and we deal with dangerous stuff all the time, we still have to have somebody point us in the right direction so that we don't take those shortcuts, and the shortcuts come back and bite us in the end. I tell guys all the time, I call it a 2 a.m. rule. At 2 a.m. in the morning and you're out there and you're given a job to do, if you know how to do the job because you've done it 100 times and there's a shortcut to do it, do you take the shortcut, or do you have the loyalty and to do it the right way, and the integrity to do it the right way, the way it has to be done? It may take you 2 hours to do it the right way, but your shortcut is 30 minutes. I think that's the same way with life as, reading the Bible. You could say, oh, I'm not going to read the Bible and not worry about it, and I'm going to do it my way. And then all of a sudden you've dug that hole and you're deep in that hole, and now you want to start reading the Bible, when if you would have done it to begin with, like I should have done it from the beginning, and listened to my parents and everybody, and Casey knew better. I knew better than what everybody else was telling me.
Yeah, well, let me paint a little Bible picture for you. So in Jonah chapter 1, Jonah, that boy's running. Like and it gets worse and worse, right? He keeps on digging that hole. It just gets worse. He goes on a downward trend the whole time. Like things are just falling apart. Then finally, he gets swallowed up by a big old fish. He sinks down to the water. And then, this boy's if anybody should have known better, he was a prophet. You know what I mean? Like this guy, hey, I should have known better.
Right.
But he didn't pray. The Bible says that joker didn't pray. He didn't pray about running from God or anything. He didn't pray until he was at his bottom. When everything fell apart. And then Jonah chapter 2 is about him praying to God, man, I'm gonna make some vows to the Lord. I'm gonna keep them things. But here's the good news. In Jonah chapter 3, it opens up with these words. But then the word of the Lord came to Jonah a second time. So, look, Casey's fired many people. Hey, I wish I could, but I'm a preacher and stuff, so I got to stick with it. So, but the thing is a lot of times, man, you get in that hole, you take them shortcuts, and some of the consequences of that is man, folks are kind of done with you and all. The good news about the Lord is, he gave Jonah a second time. The problem is Jonah ended up smelling like fish vomit. Because chapter 3, the Bible says that big old fish spit him out.
Right.
And look, they've done studies of could a person survive? I ain't gonna get into that because if we believe that Jesus died and rose again, a fish ain't really a big problem.
Right. Exactly.
So that's exactly. So it can happen. Check it out, Google it and stuff. There's folks who survive like that. But the reality is, the bigger picture is the Lord gave him a second time, but he still had to suffer some consequences as a result. So when it comes to some of those guys that are just in that pit, what are some ways that you found in your own life to help kind of dig out of that, or was it something you never even dug out of it? The Lord had to kind of pick you up out of that mess.
Different decisions I've made in life, whether it be good or bad, and then suffering the consequence from it, especially the bad decisions. One person I turned to a lot was my dad and my mom, and I went to a rehab one time. It was supposed to help me be able to get back into the Air Force and get my rank back and everything like that. And when I sat down in this rehab thing, And it wasn't because I was an alcoholic or a drug addict. It was just it was like a re-entrance into the service. And so I sat down in there, and there was other inmates in there, and we were sitting there talking. And this counselor, he wanted me to tell my story, so I told him, what happened and how I got there and everything like that. And he looked at me and he said, "Well, it's your mom and dad's fault." And I was like, "My mom and dad didn't play a role in this at all. They had no clue. I did it to myself." And he just kept telling me that it was my mom and dad's fault. And I kept looking at the guy, and I finally got up and walked out, and I just did the rest of my time and went on parole. But I think a lot of times we look to the wrong people for the answers. I think if we, turn to people, and I know some people say, "Well, I don't have family and I can't turn to my family." That's fine. And I understand that too. Turn to somebody like you or somebody like me, or there's other people out there that can help. And I think if people listen to our stories and talk about, things that we've done, maybe it will transfer somebody to go the other way. I mean, like I said before, I never really read in the Bible. I knew about the Bible. I mean, my grandparents and everybody, and I knew the different books in the Bible and different stories and stuff like that. But not until recently have I really started reading and understanding and comprehending more. It's just it's a cruel world out there, and I tell my grandkids all the time, it'll eat you up before you even know it. And a lot of times, one of my granddaughters was dealing with an issue here lately where it was like she had met some new friends, and they were telling her different things, and one of them was always like talking about negative stuff all the time. It's like she wanted her to feel sorry for her or something. Yeah, I don't really understand what was going on, but I had to tell her. I said, look, people are out for themselves the majority of the time. There's people that are put on this earth to do cruel things and to do mean things. Not everybody put on earth is here to be your friend and be there for you and love you and treat you like a brother or sister. There's people out there that are just truly here for one reason. And she started listening, and me and her mom and my wife, we all talked to her, and she's doing a lot better now with it and everything. But I think kids are easily influenced around that right there at teenage mark. They get really influenced, and they can get into a hole real quick, and they don't know how to get out.
Yeah, and so one of the things you mentioned, like especially when this counselor was talking to you, was about blaming somebody, and we live in a society that's about excuses, and so so whether it's as a young person or is that you and having to go to this counselor and stuff, at some point in time you got to stop making excuses and just kind of look in the mirror and it might be me.
Exactly.
I think they say excuses are like buttholes and stuff, and some of y'all are buttholes. So you might need to just like blame yourself and say, hey, I need to come to a place where like, okay, look, I can't just keep blaming. It's not my wife and because she doesn't meet my needs. It's not my job because my boss is crazy. It's not this. At some point in time, you got to man up and realize, hey, I can't make an excuse. I got to deal with real life and a real relationship with God. And if I'm not there, then then I got to.
I told my son, it was a couple of years ago. My son came and we were sitting on the front porch, and he's like, "Dad, there's this guy that he's always like, well, because I've been to prison, nobody wants to give me a raise, nobody wants to give me a promotion," and he's like, every day, he said, I just keep hearing him down himself and down himself and down himself. And he said, I finally told him, hey man, go talk to my dad, because there comes a time in life, exactly what you just said. The thing that might be holding you back is yourself. Look in that mirror and say, hey, why? What do I need to do? How do I change? And I tell guys all the time, like, if we terminate somebody or let somebody go, no, we didn't fire you. You fired yourself because you chose to go a different direction than what you were supposed to go. The good thing about Jesus is he don't turn his back on you. You can choose to go the wrong way, but guess what? He's still right there beside you. I know when I was going through all my stuff, I'm only alive because of one reason. I mean, it's Jesus. There's no other thing that could have changed it. Yeah. Because I was headed down the path that was worse than when I got caught. I got caught at a point where I wasn't that far gone yet. I was there. I just hadn't made that final step, and I got caught. And that was him showing me, hey, wake up.
Yeah.
You know?
And if you look at Jonah's story, especially some of you guys that are like, man, I gave my life to the Lord, and I know the Lord and stuff. Well, if you know the Lord, then believe me when I tell you, a God-sized whooping hurts worse than anything you could ever imagine when the Lord's like, hey, keep wandering away, keep messing around. And when he got to snatch you and get you back in line and stuff, that'll be a painful moment. And for Jonah, it was literally like the Lord's like, hey, storm got worse, things got worse, until finally he's like, all right, you don't want to listen. Let's amp this up a little bit. And so so I think you got to stop making those excuses. The second thing is you'd mentioned like being able to reach out to folks' accountability. For some folks, out there, they may be like, man, I ain't got any, man. Like you said, I ain't got any family and stuff. I know as men, sometimes the hardest thing to do is to kind of reach out to somebody and say, man, I might need you right now. The Bible says that bad company corrupts good character. So you got to watch who you get advice from, kind of like that negative part.
Right.
So what have you learned about folks that, how much influence do folks have when you're digging in a pit? If you got some other diggers next to you, man, and y'all, you can always find folks who want to get in trouble with you. They'll take a shovel and they'll pile that dirt right on you. So what have you noticed? Like, man, I've had to make some decisions when it comes to people that I relate to, people that I hang out with, things that I listen to, in this trying to get out of this pit part of your life.
Yeah, I mean, when I got out of prison, I had to change my whole life. I couldn't go back to where I wanted to go back to, because I wanted to go back to San Antonio, but I couldn't go back because the same people that I was dealing with were there, and that influence it's peer pressure is big, and it affects you in a lot of bad ways. And so me changing my whole surroundings, everybody that I hung out with, everybody that I talked with, it led me on a different path. I mean, yeah, I was still going out, still getting drunk and hanging and partying and doing all that kind of stuff. Yesterday in church, when you said,
Oh.
yeah, Teresa looked at me because I went, I laughed out loud because I was like, did he buy that from me? Because, hey, man, I've done it. I've sold it to people that, thought it was the real thing, and it wasn't the real thing, and it's just, man, life is strange. And since I've found Jesus and I've been coming to church and reading my Bible, and me and my wife talk more, it's just a whole better life. I can't say it enough. And it's like my new relief at work. He tells me all the time. He's like, man, I appreciate you giving me this opportunity. I appreciate you giving me this chance. And it's like, I tell Jesus the same thing. I appreciate you giving me this chance. I appreciate you giving me this opportunity to show you that, hey, I can do right, in life. And I hope that my kids and my grandkids, they learn from me and say, look, yeah, Papa came from a bad situation, but look how he turned out in the end. When I die, I want people to, I think a lot of people say, you're remembered by the dash between the dates, your birth date and the day of death. Well, when it comes to my dash, I want it to say, hey, he lived a good life and he was a good influence for people. And so the more I can do like this podcast, yeah, I mean, I hope it just touches one person. I don't have to have 5,000 subscribers or anything like that. I'm not in it to make money. I'm in it to help people, and just be there. If you need to talk, call me. Yeah. Let's talk. I might not even have the answer, but I'll sit there and listen, and talk about it. But you dig a hole and you get down in that hole and you can't get out. It's rough. Yeah. It's really rough.
Yeah. And I'd encourage folks watching. Look, I know folks talk about church hurt and stuff, and so they don't want to go to church and all. Tonight the Spurs are playing, and if they lose tonight, I'm gonna be Spurs hurt.
I am too.
Yeah, but I'm probably not going to, tomorrow I think Darius and I are supposed to play basketball together and stuff. I'm not going to stop playing basketball if the Spurs lose,
Right.
rather than win and stuff. But just because you've had experiences where it's like, man, I got hurt in a church or preacher didn't live up to expectations, blah blah. I would encourage folks that sometimes when you're in a hole, if you can find a group of people that are trying to get out of the hole together, you can jump on my back and then I'll jump on yours and we'll get out of this pit together. Sometimes it's important to find folks, and that's why God created a church family to try to, we're in this thing together. And so I'd encourage you, you might not have those folks like, man, I ain't got family around, I struggle at work trying to find folks to really encourage me. Try to find you wherever you are a place that, man, I just feel like it's home.
And that's what it feels like here. I mean, not this past Sunday, but the Sunday before, and and you ask, if you think you need to be prayed for, to raise your hand. And Nate was behind me, and he put his hand on my shoulder and started praying for me, and it was like just an awesome feeling to know that there's other people out there that will pray for you and keep you in their prayers and support you if you needed that support. It felt great. And then after church, we sat there and talked for a little while. And man, to have that kind of friend over the kind of friend that says, hey, let's go sell a bag of weed, or let's go sell an 8-ball of cocaine, or let's go get drunk, stuff like that. It's tremendous. It's a tremendous change in life. And it's kind of like I told my wife, I bought these tennis shoes and they're like game changers. Well, reading the Bible and everything are game changers too.
Oh, he got them hokas, the black and white ones now, bro. Like that.
I call them. I think they're hookahs. I called them hookahs. Oh, they're hookahs.
Oh yeah, I think hookah's that thing that you kind of like. Yeah,
Imagine
that's that's a whole different thing.
Imagine that.
Imagine that. Well, so if you were, here's the good thing. You talk about that dash and all. Reality is none of us know how long that dash is going to be.
That's right.
And so that's why I love that part about Jonah. Like, look, people be like, man, I ain't messing with that dude anymore. He done failed. He done ran. He done walked away. But just that idea that the Lord's like, man, I'm going to give them a second time. And for most of us, it's a 4th time, an 8th time, 1,000th time.
Mine's probably a 10th, 100th time.
Man, I can't even imagine how many times the Lord's like, all right, come on, let's get this thing right. But here's the good news. Even for you, I don't care what record you've got, what's happening in your life, whatever, how far down that pit is. When Jesus came, he left heaven to come to earth. He went down to the pit of everything that we are. And if there's nobody else that could ever grab you, understand the pit that you're in, Jesus is willing to get you out of that pit. And so, that's not just like preacher talk and all that. Man, I just know I've been in a lot of pits in my life. Right. And I know that, in a lot of those pits, I'm the one that dug the hole to get myself in there. Right. But man, when the Lord's able to kind of pick you up, I remember this story about Peter. He was with the Lord, doing great, walking on water, had his eyes on Jesus, took his eyes off of Jesus for a minute, and all of a sudden he started to sink. When he started sinking, though, he didn't come up with like some spiritual, Lord, I'm going to get my life right, and I'm going to do better, and I'm going to, start committing my life. Literally, when he was sinking, he simply prayed, Lord, save me. And, for some of those folks that are in a pit,
right.
It can begin with a simple prayer like that, Lord save.
Yeah. And I think, as men, as blue collar men, we have that pride, and it's hard to break through it, to ask for help, like you said. And it's just since I've been doing the podcast, and I've had young guys at work come up and talk to me about things that, we would have never talked about before. In the past, the way I was in the past, they would have never came to me with those questions. They never would have talked to me about those things. I've even had company men that, that we work for that have stopped and talked to me about the Bible and different things. And it's a whole different world. And yeah, I'm loving it.
Oh, yeah. So stop making excuses. All right. Start being accountable to somebody. Find you some folks that you can just be like, man, I want to kind of walk with the Lord better. Find you some folks that you can connect with that instead of bringing you away from the Lord, they're going to help you to get closer to the Lord. And at some point in time, you're going to have to make a commitment and a decision that, man, I'm finally going to do this thing.
Right.
I'm going to quit playing church, quit playing around with God. You know, I'm gonna finally make this thing happen, and then get the shovel out of your hand and stop digging that hole even bigger.
Right.
Because that ain't working. You know,
That's right.
whatever it is, it ain't working. So, so what about some final words? All right. So, some things for these guys. You've been in some dark pits, some pretty dug down deep places. Would you tell folks out there if there's even hope for somebody like that?
There is hope. I mean, when I got sent to prison, everything was taken from me. My rank in the military, my respect that I got from people that because I was in the military, my money, my vehicles, my apartment, everything was taken from me, and it's you're way down there, and you don't know how it feels until you are sitting in a cell and there's nobody to talk to, there's nobody to reach out to because you can't just pick up the phone and call. You might nowadays they can, but back when I was in, you couldn't. You got certain visiting hours and certain phone calls, and that was it. That's all you know. These people told you how to live. They told you what you could do, when you could do it, when you could. And man, that's when somebody takes that away from you, and you're down that low. It's hard to get back. It's you feel like it's done. It's over with. But there's hope. There is hope. I mean, you have to keep striving forward and keep going forward. And I do wish that I would have sooner in life. I would have started reading the Bible and started going to church more and everything. My wife would tell you now, I hate to miss, Sunday. If I'm home, I'm coming to church, and the other day when I came and visited and did the kids camp and everything, that was awesome just to see all the kids. And it really touched my heart to see my grandkids and my daughters,
Old crew.
and involved as much as they were, and I was here with them. And you just, there's hope. There's somebody out there that will change your life, that will show you the right way. You just have to keep seeking them, and it'll come around.
Yeah. And, the crazy thing is we don't, we know a little bit about Jesus, like when he, where he was born at like 12 years old. We know his mama lost him and stuff. He went to the temple and all. But there's a period of time that we don't really know, like, what was going on when he was working in the carpenter shop, just blue collar kind of stuff. But then when he really started his ministry, there was like 3 years of ministry. 3.5 years or so, when he was in 30 to 33 or so. But in those 3 years, like everything changed.
Right.
And so, so that does, what it means to me is like, man, God can take, no matter how far a hole you've dug yourself in, God can grab you out of that hole and in a short time can do more with your life than if you would have been a believer all your life,
yeah.
and just been really, so I think, so that brings me hope for whatever folks have gone through, that God could still use their life,
right,
and really do more in their life right now. And so, man, that's exciting to see what the Lord is going to do. I will say this for some folks that may be watching today: until you breathe your last breath, there's still hope.
Always,
and there may be some folks who are like, man, it's so hopeless. I'm just thinking about ending my life. Look, there's still hope even for you. Until you breathe your last, there's a hope for a turnaround. There's hope for God to do something with your life. There's hope for change to happen. And so, I know there could be a pit of depression, a pit of despair, a pit of like, man, you and your spouse are about to get a divorce and stuff. There's a pit where your family's falling apart. Pit of addiction. I mean, we could go down the list of pits
right.
that folks find themselves in. But you got to let the one who can get you out of that pit. And you can't do it. I can't do it. We can't do it, but the Lord can.
Right.
Hey, I do want to give folks a challenge before we kind of close this episode out. One of the things that I told Red, I needed his help because I'm looking in the fall to preach through 1 John. And preacher boys, sometimes we get in our head and we're like, man, everybody knows this and this, and so so sometimes I forget what it's like to be normal. And so I try my best, and believe me, I'm succeeding at it being normal way too good sometimes. But if you're watching and you're like, man, I want to read through 1 John, 2 John, 3 John stuff, and this is what I told Casey. I was like, man, if you could just write down some questions, some things that you think that are kind of like, man, that seems kind of tough and all. I'd love to hear their response too.
Right.
And be
Yeah, I
kind
do
of almost
too.
like our OG and Jesus Bible study together. We'll just start looking. He's about to go off for 2 weeks and all, and so we'll kind of play with it during that time. And so, look, if you're watching this, it might be an opportunity for you to just say, hey, I want to leave some comments. I want to ask some questions, and then
Right.
we'll try to get to that.
I even told Teresa about it, and I sent it all to her, so she's going to do it also. So,
Oh, yeah, no, that'd be great.
yeah, I think it'll be good.
Yeah, and so, he said 33,000 will be all of it, at least watched one time or 1 minute and stuff, over the different views. And so, some of y'all may be like repeat offenders. You've been watching a couple of episodes and all. But if that's, I'd appreciate your help. And so it'd be a way for us to kind of, as a community, go through some things together.
Yeah, I think, and people can come up with some good questions.
Yeah. Now, in the future, for those who may want a little disclaimer, what else has been on your heart? What else you want to tell some guys? And then these are some things that will be in the mix that we're going to be working on.
I want to hear from a couple wives. My wife, and she's got a couple friends. I think it would be good to hear their point of view and their perspective of, living with a blue collar guy, and especially an oil and gas guy, and how they do things. And then I want to talk to a couple guys, maybe get their view of things and their testimonies, and see how they've done it all these years. I've got a couple rig managers that have been around in the business a long time, and they've got they're still firm in their faith and reading the Bible, and yeah, they might look raw, but they're still, they're good guys.
That's good. And so we're even working on some ways to kind of bring some folks in on the screen and all, just kind of, even if they're virtually in there, and then we get them from another place. So that's all coming up. So we're looking forward to that all happening in the weeks to come. The reality is we'd love to put one of these out every day and every week and stuff. That man got a real job. And so we got a limited amount of time to make these things happen. Right. So you guys should understand that. Right. So, all right. Well, any final words? We'll knock it out. All right. Well, look. Go ahead.
I said I'm good.
All right. Well, if he's good, I'm good as well. Let me pray real quick for you guys, and then we'll go from there. Father, I thank you for each person that's watching today. Lord, I know that you are the only one that can get us out of a pit. Lord, I know just like Jonah who ran, if they're running today, stop them in their tracks. Bring them to their knees and help them to call on Jesus. And in the middle of that time, Lord, I thank you that you're going to give a second chance and all those other chances. But Father, we get tired of digging. We're exhausted of digging away from you. Just pray that if we're going to run, may we run to Jesus today. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Stay strong. And until next time, thank you for listening. Please hit the like button, subscribe, and share. Remember, no matter where you are in life or faith, you are not alone. Strong people need God.